talk that C.J. Hicks and Malik Hartford might redshirt? I know things can change. Is that the plan for right now with those two guys?
So, we make decisions at the end of the year whether we're going to redshirt guys, based on what happens. And so we're going to take it week to week based on, availability, depth chart. But those guys, they need to be ready to go this week if that's what comes up. As you know, the rule is 4 games and then able to play in the postseason. So we're going to evaluate it. But those guys need to be ready because before you know it, they could be in a game. But we're also going to be smart about how we move forward.
We'll go right over here on the aisle. Jeremy Birmingham.
Right. With the pace of play conversation as it's been just something you talked about now for a couple of years and changing it, when you look at a game like Saturday where you guys actually ran less plays than you did against Washington, how much or is there a worry that you guys are letting the defense dictate too much to you with your offense? Does that make sense?
No.
They play the soft zone, and you're in a position where you're plotting, you're moving downfield, but when you get Minnesota, they place a man, and you can take shots and be more aggressive. Is there a desire to try and find a happy medium somewhere?
I think the key is efficiency. Yeah. And whatever allows us the opportunity to be the most efficient. There's times where, we want to line up quickly and get on the ball and play, but you also want to make sure you're running sound plays. And there's a lot that we could get into about what schematically gives you the best opportunity and chance, and whether coordinators can look at your formations and then make their calls to the defense. Getting everybody into a huddle, communicating, and getting everybody on the same page, allowing your quarterback to talk about the alerts, 2 plays. There's just a lot of things that can come into play when you're in the huddle. To us, it's about efficiency. If we need to speed up the game, we will. But it's to me, it's all about how efficient we are with our plays. I think the fourth quarter kind of went fast because of the score. So I think we were on pace to probably play a lot more plays in the game, but because of the score, I think the fourth quarter just kind of came and went, and we didn't have a whole bunch of plays there. But, the ultimate key is efficiency, and then what gives us the best opportunity to do that. And if it's tempo, we'll do it. If it's not, then we won't. But that's it, and because the game has changed and is changing every week, so we have to make sure we're ahead of it.
Looked like Kenyatta was doing better toward the end of the game. Is there any chance he'll be back this week?
Yeah, definitely a chance. We'll see how today goes, but we're hopeful he plays on Saturday.
You mentioned on Saturday Jeremiah being the best offensive player in the country. How do you kind of go into a game and balance, knowing you want to get the ball in his hands as much as you can, with also knowing if guys like Carnell, Max Clare, and Brandon get going, that it's going to open opportunities for JJ? Like, how do you balance that going into a game?
Well, a little bit of both in terms of, you design plays where you think the ball may go one place, but if a defense, is designed to stop that area or that player or that, area of the formation or area of the field or whatever it might be, then the ball needs to go somewhere else. And I think that's what's, challenging for a receiver to, again, I say that, and it's, whether Jeremiah gets the statistics that he would need to get into the Heisman race or not, it's sort of out of his hands because there's just certain things that can happen that are out of his control. So that doesn't change who he is in terms of a player, his impact on the game, or anything like that. We have to make sure that we're figuring out as many ways as we can to get him the ball. Knowing that that's not the number one most important thing. The most important thing is to move the ball and score points and be efficient. So, but that's why I mentioned that after the game. Carnell has done a lot of the dirty work that's allowed, some of the other guys on offense to have success, and then vice versa. Jeremiah, dictates coverage or as a decoy in a play to open up something for Carnell. That's winning football, and that's going to be the key moving forward. And I think you're seeing, guys like Max and our running backs really starting to take strides forward now to make an impact. And we just want to make sure when we go into a game that, based on what the defense is giving us, that we can attack them in that area. When you lose that balance, that's when you put yourself at risk. So whether it's in personnel groupings, running, throwing, styles of plays, we always want to make sure we're on the attack.
Second row middle, Bill Landis.
Right. That field goal you guys tried was only the 6th 50-yard field goal you've tried since you've been head coach. I know you don't want to be in the business of kicking them, but should you have a kicker that can make it from 50 yards? And was any part of calling it there seeing whether or not Jaden can do it?
Yeah, for sure. I think maybe have we tried 3 with him or 4 with him? Maybe 3. Yeah. We go off what we see in practice, but it needs to show up in the game. I thought that was a great opportunity early in the game for him to make a 50-yarder, a 50-plus yarder. He just missed it. But that's going to be something that, is going to come up here down the road. And like you said, those things got to go through the uprights. At some point during the season, it's going to come up in a big spot. So we like what we see in practice, but it's got to carry over to the game because that's what matters. That's all, what we get judged on. So, we need him to make that kick. It's important. He's an important part of the team. Everybody's got to do their job.
Expand a little bit, I guess, on the battle you had with he and Jackson in camp, because Jackson has made a couple 50-yarders in his career.
Yeah. It was sort of back and forth early. I thought Jaden really pulled away towards the end of camp. We'll go off what we see in practice, but it's good to know that you have 2 kickers that are capable.
Go right behind him, Spencer Holmgren.
Ryan, with the way that Zion played, the way that Will Smith Jr. has provided some depth right now for you, how do you feel like your mind has changed on the defensive line depth compared to when you were talking to you in August? You seemed, quite frankly, pretty concerned about it.
Well, it's similar to some of the other guys that hadn't played before at other positions. There was a little bit of an unknown there, but the more these guys build trust, which is what we're all trying to do on a daily basis within the building. When you go on the field, are you doing your job? And we knew we had to build depth at that position, and we need to continue to work to get better, to build more and more depth, because it's going to get challenged as the season goes on. And, so these guys are putting in the work every day, and it's great to see some of them grade out. Some of those guys graded out champions over 80%, and that's got to give them confidence. And so we need all of them. And, to answer your question, though, we're nowhere where we need to be anywhere across the board. And if anybody thinks that, we're setting ourselves up. You've heard me say this before. We got a really good opponent that we're playing this week that knows how to win. Brett is as good a coach as there is in the game. He's got a really good staff. His players are tough. They're smart, and they know how to win. And they know how to win games like this. At home, noon game. 11 local time. They're really good. So we have to have them. The best week of practice we've had all year, and we got to get on that plane, get ready to play with a ton of energy, and play with a great physicality and fly around because it's going to be a great atmosphere. I know that. Our players know that, and so again, it starts at 2:30 today. But I just think that all those guys are building confidence, but it's got to continue to build week in and week out. And but the good news is we've seen it. It's on film. These guys shown they can do it. So the more we can now consistently do it, that becomes our identity.
Right in front of him, Stephen Means.
Obviously, your reputation as a quarterback developer is well known at this point, but it's been different every single time, right? What's necessary for that quarterback on game day. With Julian, it just kind of feels like, maybe I'm wrong about this, but this has been the most ideal scenario that you've had to develop a quarterback. He spends a year sitting behind someone who wins a national title, gets a couple snaps. Obviously, he has a big game early, but you've got a good defense that you can rely on while you're bringing along the quarterback slowly. You're giving him more and more every single week. And is that a fair assessment there of when you look at the environment Julian gets to kind of bake in compared to maybe what Kyle had, CJ had, Justin had? Maybe this is a little bit more ideal for you to approach it the way you want to approach developing quarterbacks in season?
Well, I think every situation is different and every quarterback is different. But at the end of the day, the player has to put it on the field. And you're seeing Julian grow each week. I think you're seeing his teammates believe in him more and more. He's taking more and more command. I think he understands, and it's important for any quarterback to understand what he's surrounded by on both sides of the ball, all 3 phases, and know what we need to do to win the game. And if we can continue to do that, then we're going to have a chance to reach our goals this season. But this is going to be another challenge for him on the road, second road game in another really difficult environment. To me, this is like a top 10 opponent on the road, and he's gonna have to play really, really well. This is the next step in the progression, and to say this was the most ideal start for a quarterback, at the time, number one, Texas first game of the year on the road against a team that was the 22 straight games winning at home. It's probably not how I would start it. But to your point, having a strong running game, having a good defense, and not being put into positions where he has to come from behind early in his career is good. But that's going to happen at some point. We're going to have to do that. So he's growing every day, and we got to keep giving him more and more to handle. But at the same time, understanding that this is about winning games, and we want to score every time we get on the field, but it's not just about that part of it either. He's got a good defense, he's got a good running game, and then each game we'll have to go with a game plan that we think gives us the best chance to win.
Your process, whether it's picking the quarterback, even recruiting him, evaluating it, it seems very almost, this is my pace I'm going to work at. It's very thorough. Where did that philosophy come from in terms of the whole process of how you go about evaluating quarterbacks and developing them, and essentially get them to the point that now they're on the field and now you're doing?
Yeah, it's not a science, because if it was, these NFL teams and these college teams would have it down, and they'd have an AI app and figure out how to figure out what the best quarterback is, but that doesn't work that way. There's just so many intangibles in place, and I think the more you're around it, the more you see traits in certain guys that are aligned, and then when you work with them, you get a chance to see how they respond to different situations. There's a lot that goes with being a quarterback. There's an intellectual level that has to be at a certain point. There's a spatial intelligence. There's an emotional intelligence in dealing with players. There's processing of information. There's a resilience. There's just a lot that goes with it. And then there's the physical traits. So over time, you just start to see similarities, and sometimes you're wrong. And then you have to find the right person that's right for this school, this place, this program, because that's not always easy to find. This, like I've said all the time, Ohio State's not for everybody, but Julian, I think in his mind, has always felt like he wanted to play at a place like Ohio State, where he saw himself in that light, and I think that's part of the process of quarterbacks. Like they see what they want, and like they're just driven, and you can't tell them anything else, that this is what they're going to do, and it's not up for discussion, despite setbacks that are going to come along their process.
Ryan, when you prepare for a team that has one outlier performance, I'm talking 63-10 against Indiana, how do you explain that? And do you look at that film and say that's stuff that can be exploited, or is it almost such an outlier that you say we don't even take much away from it?
Pitch the game, throw it out. It's not who they are. I can't quite explain that game. I know Nebraska had the same thing that happened last year, and then came in and played us all the way to the fourth quarter. So throw that film out. Don't even barely look at it, because to me that's not who we're playing. They, whatever it was in that game, it's an outlier. So we're going to look at the games that were played prior, what they did last year, what they've done the last two games. Brett's again one of the better coaches in the country, and he's a resilient guy, and they're a resilient team. So I think it says a lot about them to rebound the way they did, get a win against USC, and then go play the way they did last week. So, we all know that going through a tough loss can bring a bunch of people together. I think they've done that, and so we know we're going to get their best shot here on Saturday, and we're going to talk about that today, and we've got to have a great day of practice.
Over to the left, Jared Smalley.
Hey, Ryan, after the game Saturday, Minnesota was discussing how the defensive game plan that you all brought changed very significantly from the first series after. Can you walk us through how, when you start a plan for the defense for a game, how that evolution occurs, and you throw these completely different pictures at an offense? Just how that confusion happens, how those conversations work to make sure that the picture gets fuzzy.
Yeah, I think we're always trying to figure out a way to make it complicated for the other team, but simple for our guys. That's what coaching is all about. And there's a balance that you try to find of doing too much so that the guys aren't playing fast, but doing enough that keeps them off balance. And we have to have in all three phases, different things that, you can't just get narrowed in on. Coaches are too good nowadays. They'll exploit. If you see a weakness or you see a tendency, they're going to be all over that. But then if you don't have tendencies, that means you're not very good at anything. And that's what we're all trying to figure out as coaches. And when we identify, how a team's trying to attack us, then we try to make adjustments just like any program does, when they come over to the sideline and then at halftime. But you got to credit the players. They're the ones that are actually doing it on the field. It's one thing to have an idea or have an adjustment, but it's another thing to put it on the field. And so when you have guys like Caleb and Sonny and Arvell and IGB and Kenyatta and Caden who have played football enough and seen it, they have sort of a Rolodex of plays that they can recall to get back to, and then communicate that to the other guys on the defense. So that's the sign of a mature team when you can make adjustments, but then actually execute them on the field.
Ryan, there were some opportunities, I think, for Josh Padilla there at right guard on Saturday. I know every week, every position is up for evaluation. Is right guard a spot where you guys are still searching, experimenting, or what went into that process?
I think it's more about the work Josh is putting in on a daily basis. This is a guy who plays center and plays guard and just goes to work every day, and you just watch the way he plays. We do some, ones on twos on ones, and when you watch our second group go out there late in the game, they kind of, we've seen it before, they go out 3 and out, and it's like, okay, these guys went down the field. And I thought that was a good sign just for the overall culture of the team that, we're competing against each other, a lot of good on good in practice. And when we see Josh out there, we just see a lot of good play and just felt like he deserved an opportunity to get out there and play. We felt like he could go to center, but when you're moving the center around, there's a lot that goes with that, with Julian and the communication. So we wanted Josh to get some work at right guard because we feel like he's earned that opportunity. Did great out too, but Tegri did as well, so that's all a good sign. So when guys deserve to be starters, whether it's at offensive line or another position, we want to try to get them in the game. So we'll keep evaluating on a week-to-week basis.
Right, you just kind of mentioned this about Julian, but one thing that stands out, it seems, over these first 5 weeks in his performances is he's just in full command, it seems. Command keeps on coming up. But command's a very broad word, so I guess I ask you, what does command look like in your eyes? What does that mean? What all does that entail?
Well, I think it's competency. You always hear me talk about building trust, but it's true. Like, do the guys around him trust him? Trust all of us. Trust me. Trust the coaches. Trust each other. And the first is your character, who you are. Then it's your connection with people. But a big part, especially a quarterback, is your competency. Like, do you know what you're doing? So he and Billy do a lot of work. Lincoln, the quarterbacks, I'm in there a good amount of time. And we're making sure that, like, nobody knows the offense better than the quarterback. Center, tight. I mean, there's a lot of guys that know the offense, but the quarterback, when he gets in that huddle, he knows exactly what's going on. And some of those play calls are like paragraphs. So, like, by the time we get done with that break, I'm like, he gets like a round of applause in the back. Like, I don't know if I could remember that, because I'm reading on a script. He's hearing his ear, and then he rips it off. And Will kind of had that last year where, like, he would rip it off, and I'm telling, like, 15 words, and, like, when he broke, like, the guys were like, "Great job, Will," because that was not easy, man. Holy smokes! But that Julian picked that up, and so he can recall it fast. Calls it in the huddle on one, ready, break. Everyone breaks the huddle. It's just like this feeling of like, all right, we got this. Whether it's two or three plays in a huddle, or some sort of tip to the guys on what's going on. Understanding down and distance, personnel, what the situation is. So the communication is really where that comes into play. But to me, they have to believe that the leader knows what he's doing and he can do his job. And then the last C is consistency. You got to do it day in and day out. And I think that's a big part of the command. And then at the line of scrimmage, having the body language, just the overall demeanor that I'm in charge of this thing. And he's growing every week with that. And I think with that is confidence too, like knowing that you can do it.
For camp, expecting that was the case, or is that something where you have to see it against live bullets on film before you know for sure?
It's built over time. We saw certain things in practice that we were encouraged with, but you don't know till you're in a game. And to see the way he's responded in already some big moments in his first whatever quarter of the season, then we can build off of that, and I think people see that and get excited about it because it's just the beginning. A long way to go, but it's very encouraging.
you obviously are pleased with the way the team has played. Unlike other teams, you haven't stubbed your toe. But every time you talk about the success, you kind of measure with fighting complacency. How big a battle is that in your mind? Is that almost the number one priority now, is don't let these guys think they're that good because we got a long road ahead of us?
Yeah, it's every time I hear somebody say, you guys are doing great or anything like that, like I just feel like we're getting set up. That's just the way that I look at it as a coach, because I just feel like it's our job as coaches and leaders to make sure like guys understand that, we say ignore the noise. You've heard that before. Usually they're talking about adversity. I'm using it right now with our guys, because all of a sudden, everyone thinks, you're the number one team in the country and you've done all these things. We haven't done anything yet. We haven't accomplished a thing. And so the only thing that's going to matter is who gets better week in and week out. And it's just easy nowadays because of the media, because of their phones, because of everything that comes with it. You can start reading your press clippings and you can start feeling pretty good about yourself. And then all of a sudden, you get knocked out and you don't realize it. So we cannot let that happen. And the coaches and the leaders and all those guys are determined not to let that happen. But that's because it's not about the score. It's not about the opponent. It's about us and our training and our foundation. And that's got to be the focus. It's the process over the results. And so, but the tricky thing is you got to bring it every week. But these are still 18, 19, 20-year-old men. They're young men, but, they're not pros yet. Although, the world's changing, we have to make sure that they understand that. And when you haven't been through that before, I talk to the guys all the time, there's wisdom, and if you can just listen to the people that have been through it before, like we have a lot of great coaches with great wisdom. And, I suggest to our players all the time, ask them what it's like, because they've been through the ups and the downs and everything in between. And, this is going to be a long season and we have to bring it. Every single team we play, including this team, was a very good team, can knock you off if you're not on your game. And this has to be the best game we played all season. And that's the other part. It can't just be like what we did last week. The team we were last week is not going to be good enough. We've got to be better in a lot of areas. And if that's the approach, we're going to have a chance. To say that we haven't had that approach up to this point would not be true. I think we have, but we got to keep pushing. And the minute, you heard me say that, the minute we think we got this figured out, we're about to get it. And we can't be that way. Now, I have not seen that. So that's good. But we got to stay on it at all times.
One question about the linebackers. Both Arvell and Sonny are big, athletic, rangy, instinctive. How much flexibility does that give Matt to be able to move those chess pieces around with those guys?
A lot, yeah. Sonny went from, the back end to the front end, and then, now you can see him do things on the edge. Arvell went from linebacker to playing on the scout team defensive end, and now he's back at linebacker. So these guys have multiple a history of playing multiple positions, and that's exciting because whether it's coverage, blitzing off the edge, playing man-to-man, lining up on an offensive lineman and a passer rush, those types of things, there's just a lot that you can do with them. And the more versatility you have, certainly the harder it is for a defense to recognize what you're doing. And Matt always done a great job of that. He's got a great history of that. So it's been great to hear him talk about some of the guys he had in New England, Jamie Collins, Hightower, these different guys that he sees different things he's done in the past that he can utilize with the players that we have, but then also maybe some new things that he's done or seen in the past. So, but that's the key is putting our guys in a situation to be successful. So, we got to start again from scratch here on Tuesday.
Coach, you've talked about in the past the importance of fast starts. How about this Saturday there? And is there anything you guys can do as a coaching staff to help push that along? I
think just giving them a clean plan and really emphasizing efficiency, and finishing the drives. I think that's important, and that's what we're going to do. Because to your point, I think a couple of the games we started okay, but we haven't been great. I think we can start better. And when you're on the road in an environment like this, you definitely want a fast start.
You were just listing kind of all the mental and emotional traits you look for in a quarterback when you're recruiting them and trying to get them in here. At what point in the process of you trying to bring them along do you realize, all right, this kid has it, or is it different or is that process different for everyone?
It's like you have these like moments where they're kind of climbing the mountain and growing. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like, okay, he's getting pretty good. And then you get off the field, you're like, this guy might have a chance. And then you see him in a game, and that's a good sign. And you start to check those boxes. Where some guys, you come off the field, you're like, man, I just don't know. I don't know if he sees it. I don't know if it makes sense to him. You talk about those things. And then he comes back the next day and maybe responds or doesn't. But there's these moments where you recognize it and evaluate it and say, this is trending in the right direction or it's trending in the wrong direction. And that's probably the best way that I could describe it. It's not a linear line. It's kind of up and down like this. But the good ones respond quickly. They make a mistake, they get it fixed, and then they move on. The ones who struggle are the ones that continue to make the same mistake over and over again.
You talked about with quarterbacks this extraordinary trait that you look for in some of them. It seems like that Julian's accuracy is that for him. I'm curious if you see it the same way, and what else stands out from this fact.
Yeah, I would say his accuracy and how quickly the ball comes out is certainly something that I think we all can recognize is pretty special.
Ryan, after the game, you talked about Jeremiah, and you mentioned how Carnell has learned from him. I think most people would assume the older guy is usually the one doing the teaching or whatever. How much has Jeremiah been able to impact not just Carnell, but everybody in that room? And how have you seen those guys embrace maybe a younger guy that is doing it this time?
I think they both, learn from each other. And what I mean by that is, Carnell was here first. There's a lot of things that I'm sure Jeremiah learned from Carnell just about day to day. But the fact that there's just days where, one guy's getting a lot of touches, the other guy maybe isn't, and then vice versa. And watching Emeka go through that, watching through, you remember when we had, Jackson and Marvin and Emeka, and, one game somebody's getting a lot of touches, the other one that maybe the guy's doing a little bit more of the dirty work, or he's getting taken away based on coverage. And that's part of the learning process. And I think the way that they watch each other both respond to that, I think is good because they both have great attitudes with that. So I think they both learn from each other is probably the best way to put it. Yeah.
Ryan, where would you evaluate where the running game is at this point in your season?
Yeah, I think it's solid. I think there's always areas for improvement. I think we're targeted in what we're doing. I think the guys are playing physical up front. And I think the running backs, every time they get a carry, are learning, getting better. You're seeing yards after contact improve last week, which is an area emphasis. So I think it's improving. And we know how important that's going to be, especially on a road in an environment like this.
You mentioned the 15-word, paragraph-long play calls. The guy sending those in is different this year. How would you evaluate how your offensive coordinator, Brian Hartline, is doing?
Yeah, he's doing great. It's never easy when you're doing something for the first time. And I think, he has been really efficient. He's prepared for the games. He's got a good group around him. I think he understands that, and that's, we talk a lot about being, of course, not just calling the plays. It's all the organization leading up to that, which he's learning every day. But he's got a great group of guys around him. He understands that part of it, and he knows at the end of the day it's about players, not plays, and all those things. But when you're doing everything for the first time, there's learning opportunities, which I give Brian a lot of credit for. Like, he's not somebody that gets defensive, or he wants to learn. He has that growth mindset, which is similar to what we're talking about with quarterbacks. I think that's why he's done so well just in life and in this game, is because he doesn't have a big ego when it comes to making a mistake. Once he makes a mistake, he's going to learn from it and grow from it. And so that's how you quickly get better at what you're doing. So still a long season to go, a lot of lessons to be learned, but I think for a first-time coordinator, he's off to a great start.
Last question.
Thanks, Mike. Only got one question.
Yeah.
Right. After the first game, the question was Julian saying his accuracy on the deep ball, is it going to get there, et cetera. And now he's like basically the most accurate deep ball thrower in the country. Does that something that has to be generated through game reps? If you understand my question there, game speed is different, et cetera. And where have you seen him really work on that aspect of it?
Well, it starts with your feet, but a big part of it is the receivers. those are long routes down the field, and you can only have so many of those within a week. Otherwise, you just blow your doors off your wideouts. So it has to be efficient. There's a system about how we do it, but you got to give the wide receivers credit, because there's times where, in practice, they'll run the route and maybe the timing wasn't right, and they run back and the ball maybe, is late or behind. But they've learned to understand that this is about building confidence in the quarterback too. And so they put it in during the week, man, like they do. And because of that, it's given us a chance during the week. But there's a lot that goes with throwing the ball down the field, the footwork, the timing, all those things. And we work hard at it, but ultimately the players got to make the plays.
All right, Coach, thank you.
All right, guys, thanks. You good?
No.
All right, Clay, what do you got?
What do you got?
Let me punch this damn button.
You run out of time, Clay.
From the hard-hitting question file.
Yeah.
They play for a bunch of trinkets in this league, axes, old oak and buckets, wooden turtles.
Right.
Have you actually ever held the Illabuck?
I have, and we played them at home in the rain. Remember, it rained really, really hard that game at home, and I got a chance to hold it. Great tradition, two great programs, so I'll make sure that the players know about it.
Do those groups come and give little pep talks, hey, we got to keep this thing, these service academies or anything like that?
Yeah, I'll give the pep talk on that one, yeah.